call the meeting to order of State Government Finance Policy and Elections Committee. Today being Wednesday, March 23rd, 2022. Glad to have you all here today. We have a very full agenda, and to let folks know whatever we don't complete today by noon or a few minutes before noon, we will be coming back this evening at 6:15. That's tentative time right now, but aim is for 6:15. Just to let you know that on the agenda, Senate File 3363, Senator Nelson is being moved at her request to the end of the agenda. And with that, I'm going to have Ms. Wilson go ahead and take the roll.
Senator Kiffmeyer.
Present.
Senator Howe.
Present.
Senator Carlson.
Present.
Senator Clausen.
Present.
Senator Fateh. Senator Kurian.
Present.
Senator Pratt. Senator Osmic.
Present.
Senator Fateh. Senator Pratt. We have a quorum.
Thank you, Ms. Wilson. So we do have a quorum, and we're going to start off today with two bills of mine that I'm carrying. One is the Minnesota Management and Budget Bill, and then we're going to go into Senate File 4002, which is the governor's budget. With that, I'm going to move.
Senator Kiffmeyer, to your bill, Senate File 4179. I see you have the A3 amendment. Would you like to move that at this time?
Yes, I do, Mr. Chair. I will move the A2 amendment to Senate File 4179.
That's the,
And I believe this is largely technical, but I would like to have, even though it is an amendment, an author's amendment, it's fairly extensive, and I'd like to have, if MMB is available or online, that I could have them come up and explain their amendment.
and it is the A3 amendment, right, Senator Kiffmeyer?
A3, I do not have the A3 here to 4179. I have the A2. It looks like A3 is coming. Here is the A3, Mr. Chair, so I'll withdraw my A2 motion and instead I'll move the A3 to Senate File 4179. And again, if MMB can explain the amendment, or if Ms. James, I see up on the screen here.
I think I see the Assistant Commissioner on. Ms. Hasman, if you could introduce yourself for the audio record and please continue with your testimony.
Great. Thank you very much, Chair Howe, and thank you to Chair Kiffmeyer for introducing this legislation. A brief summary of the A3 amendment, and we'll be able to provide a summary of the wider bill in just a moment. But what the A3 amendment does is it strikes language from the current statute that we are seeking to amend. Oh, and for the record, my name is Jennifer Hassemer, Assistant Commissioner at Minnesota Management and Budget. So what the A3 amendment is seeking to do is strike some language from the current statute that did not get replaced in the current bill draft, the initial bill draft. It clarifies that the changes we are seeking are specific to the state and no other local unit of government. It clarifies that state bonds cannot be used as collateral, only bonds of other states or local units of government. And finally, it allows collateral to be deposited in a safeguard account with the Federal Reserve Bank or at a trust department of a commercial bank. And these are all technical in nature, as Chair Kiffmeyer indicated.
Well, thank you. Any questions from members? Seeing none, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This bill, Mr. Chair, I'm requesting it to be laid over.
With that motion, Senate File 4179 as amended is laid over for possible inclusion. Senator Kiffmeyer, to your bill, Senate File 4002.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. And this bill is the governor's budget as he has proposed. And so we are giving this bill a hearing today and also having agencies that wanted to come and address the issues that are here in the governor's budget bill. But Mr. Chair, I'd first like to have Mr. Erickson go ahead and just walk us through the spreadsheet to just orient us, not line by line, not in detail, but just to walk us through to give us that orientation. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Erickson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Members, in your committee packets today, there's 2 copies of the state government spreadsheet for the governor's recommendations. The first one, if you look at the very bottom, is time-stamped February 4th at 2:21 p.m. That's the spreadsheet that reflects the bill that is in front of the committee, the amounts and language that are contained in that bill. The updated recommendations were released in the last week, and you'll find that spreadsheet timestamped March 17th, 2022 at 1:54 p.m. That's more updated. It's probably more useful for the committee, but I think it's worth knowing that the bill contains the earlier recommendations. We don't have language for the newer ones. So working from that second spreadsheet, you'll see the governor's change items are itemized along the left side, and then the effect on the current biennium's budget is found in the white backgrounded columns, and the tails are in the green backgrounded columns. You can find some transfers in the bill that are at the bottom, as well as one small revenue change, and then total spending amounts at the very bottom on lines 107 to 109. The spending in the recommendations is largely from the general fund, although there are just a couple of special revenue items in there as well. I think that's enough to orient folks to the spreadsheet, and I believe the agencies will be here to comment on individual items.
Thank you, Mr. Erickson. Senator Kiffmeyer, do we want to go to testifiers now?
Yes, we do, Mr. Chair.
The first up that I see is Attorney General Ellison. Are you online? AG Ellison?
Yes, I am. Thank you.
Please state your name for the audio record and continue with your testimony.
Well, Mr. Chair and Chair Kiffmeyer, and Vice Chair Howe and Senator Carlson, ranking member, and all the committee, I want to thank you all for giving us a chance to be here with you today. It is really important that I appear today for reasons that I'll share with you in a moment. Before I get to the change items, I'd like to just bring up 2 things that you may have some familiarity with, but they're important for us to keep in mind as I go into the heart of the change items. First, the Attorney General's office is a contributor to the state's general fund. We also put money back into the pockets of Minnesota families and small businesses. Second, in 2002, the general fund appropriation for the Attorney General's office was $26 million. In 2022, 20 years later, it's still $26 million. After inflation, that $26 million is worth 30% less than it was 20 years ago. In the meantime, Minnesota's population has grown. The law, litigation, and challenges Minnesotans face every day have become more complex, not less. In short, we're doing far more with far less. My thank you is to all of you and everyone in our state legislature who have provided us with funding in the last 2 biennia. With it, we have made 21st century investments in information technology. We have recruited and retained talented lawyers and staff. We've expanded our enforcement in wage theft and antitrust. That's important. That's meaningful. We're grateful to you for the support. But we have a lot more ground to make up. This is where our supplemental budget comes in. So our first request is for continued investment in operating adjustments, including retaining talent and adding critical administrative staff to meet Minnesotans' needs. The Attorney General's office is the second largest public law office in Minnesota. Few law offices in Minnesota handle the range and complexity of legal matters as the Minnesota Attorney General's office. Retaining the expertise in our office is essential to providing for the needs of the people of our state and of the state itself. Our lawyers and staff earn less than public attorneys for other local metro counties, and almost a third less than those who work at the U.S. Attorney's Office. This gap in earnings makes it challenging for us to retain attorneys. When those professionals leave our office, their knowledge and their expertise leaves with them, leaving the state and the people of the state less well off. And that hurts the state and the people of our state. Our operating adjustment request is for $2.3 million in fiscal year 23 and ongoing. Our second request is for investment in our criminal enforcement. You are familiar with this because I have testified about it last month. But members, I've also testified about it in the years 2021 and 2019. This is my third time asking the legislature for more funds for criminal enforcement. What I told you then and what I'm telling you now is that when and only when county attorneys request it, the criminal division of the Attorney General's office steps in to assist with criminal prosecution. They are in the driver's seat. These requests come almost entirely from county attorneys in greater Minnesota. But let me be clear, these county attorneys' offices do not lack talent. What they do lack is staff. 24 of Minnesota's 87 county attorney offices have just 2 attorneys or fewer. Half of them have 3 attorneys or fewer. These offices often lack the experience to try complex and time-intensive cases like murder, manslaughter, criminal sexual conduct when those crimes are committed in their counties. And of course, these offices already have other duties. They provide legal counsel to their counties. They practice contract and zoning law. They participate in county board meetings. This means that if the Cook County Attorney, Molly Hickens, who is a wonderful attorney, a brilliant attorney, who has one attorney in her office besides herself, had to try an 8-week murder trial, she would not be able to do almost any other part of the rest of her job. So at the end of the day, it's not training necessarily for those county attorneys, although training is very important and I 100% support their training appropriation. It's also if a horrific crime happens in that county, even if the county attorney has the expertise to do the case, if they do it, they will not be able to do so many other aspects of their job, which is why appropriations to us is so.
Attorney General Ellison, I'm going to have to ask you to wrap up because we're way over time already.
Okay, well, let me thank you, and I will wrap up as you asked. At the end of the day, this appropriation is critical. This is a moment when all Minnesotans are rightfully concerned about public safety. There is a lot of discussion around the Capitol about the need to address it meaningfully, both upstream and down. I endorse this discussion. Public safety is all of our business. However, fighting crime should not be the subject of political gamesmanship. Helping county prosecutors hold offenders accountable and bringing justice to victims should be a point of bipartisan unity. I want to thank you again. This is our third request. We mean it, it's serious, and we hope that you will join in supporting it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Any questions for Attorney General Ellison on the 2 budget items? Senator Carlson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is a question for Attorney General Ellison. We've got a lot of letters requesting support here from county attorneys, and I haven't been able to go through all of them, but I'm wondering, sir, if there is buried in here under prosecutorial discretion, is there some reluctance to file prosecutions on some crimes? We've talked about being tougher on crimes. We've talked about being tougher on getting people convicted of potentially higher sentence crimes. Is there something that's being lost here with the lack of staff? And does that come to the prosecutor, the decision to prosecute some people with, let's say, not as serious, but potentially convictable crimes? Are you seeing any of that?
Mr. Chair, Senator Carlson, I believe that the most serious crimes are being prosecuted. We're doing it together, county attorney and the attorney general's office. But there are a lot of other very serious crimes which are more complicated, more complex, more widespread that I believe are not being fully addressed because we have got to triage these crimes and only go to the most serious ones. So for example, we know that there is a lot of sex trafficking going on. We also know that victims in these situations are reluctant to come forward. There's a lot of shame, there's a lot of guilt, there's a lot of problems like that. And it takes a lot of intensive effort. There are other white collar crimes, which are literally draining millions and billions away from our community. Those are complicated. Those are labor intensive. So yes, I believe if there is a murder, we're good. All 87 counties, plus the Attorney General's office, plus the U.S. Attorney's office are going after those. But the crimes that are just as bad or in many and may hurt many more people, I believe we're not able to address that because of this resource deficit. And so thank you for your question. It's an excellent question, very important question. And we need more training, of course, but we also just need more people to be able to prosecute these crimes which victimize our fellow Minnesotans.
Thank you,
Thank
Attorney
you, Mr.
General.
Chair.
Thank you. With that, Senator Pratt.
Thank you. Thank you, Senator Howe. And Attorney General, just a quick question about something that happened earlier this year that I'd like you to weigh in on. Had you had the budget request that you had asked, would you have been able to challenge the DFL party when they violated statute 202A.16 on who may participate in precinct caucuses? We know the DFL party allowed non-eligible voters to vote and become delegates in clear violation of subdivision 1. I'm not aware that your office took any action. Had you had the staff, could you have taken action?
Attorney General Ellison.
Mr. Chair, that matter is not what I came prepared to discuss today, Senator Pratt. I think it's a good question and I can research it for you. But what I'm talking about is murder. I'm talking about sex trafficking. I'm talking about white collar crimes committed against people. I'm not here to talk about partisan political matters. And I think that the fact is that given the level of crime victimization that is so serious, particularly now, that it should rise above our political jockeying that we do. And look, I'm not naive. I've been in politics a long time. I know that there's partisan considerations, but when it comes to a citizen who has suffered a grievous loss because of a criminal act, I think those things should be a little bit above politics. So I will simply say that I'm happy to research your question, but I just don't think it's, I think that it's an irrelevant question within the context of this budget request.
Senator Pratt.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair. And you know, we're talking about the capacity of your office to enforce state statute, you know, whether criminal or otherwise. And I think it's, you know, it wasn't couched to be a partisan question as much as it was to be about, would this budget increase allow you to take on the defense of state statutes? Because, you know, this was one case that's fairly recent, and it was asked within the context of the budget. So I don't think it was an unfair question, Attorney General. And I think it was, I'm sorry that you don't have an answer for it, but you know, if we're talking about the capacity of your office to enforce state statute and prosecute, then I think it's a fair question. And I would have hoped that we'd had a better answer.
Mr. Chair, may I respond?
Attorney General Ellison, go ahead.
Well, I think the question did contain the mention of a particular political party, which helped direct my answer. That today we're talking about protecting Minnesotans who have been the victims of grievous criminal acts, murder, criminal sexual conduct, other horrible things that we're simply asking for a greater capacity to help those people. That is my focus. That is what the topic is. I'm more than happy to talk with you about an individual civil matter that we might well discuss. But the topic today is budget, and the request we're making is about protecting Minnesotans from criminal victimization at this critical moment. And I'm happy to talk about other matters, but that is the focal point for today's discussion. And that is where I'm directing my thoughts. And I just appeal to every member of the committee to think about a family who has suffered a grievous loss because of a criminal act. That is the focus. That's where our attention should be at this moment. And we could talk about what should or should not be done regarding a partisan political matter at another time. I'm not against discussing it. But the focal point today is the suffering victims who must be the focal point of our conversation.
Thank you. I'm going to move to
Just one.
Senator Pratt.
Thank you. Mr. Attorney General, I'd be happy to talk to you about that. It wasn't intended to be a partisan issue. It's just one that was in the news. It happened to be a particular political party that made that decision. And if we're talking a unit separate from one that would enforce those state statutes, I'm happy to understand that better. You know, again, I was talking about in the context of budget and capacity. And that was a case that is just top of mind, and we'll leave it at that. And I'll look forward to discussing it offline.
Thank you, Senator Pratt. We're going to.
Mr. Chair, I ask for the permission to respond if I may, sir.
Senator Attorney General Ellison, we're going to move on to Commissioner Tomes from minutes. So I thank you
For the record, I do have a response. I'm sorry that I won't be allowed to give it.
Commissioner Tomes, you're next on the list, please. Please state your name for the audio record and continue with your testimony.
Mr. Chair, Madam Chair Kiffmeyer, and committee members, for the record, my name is Tarek Tomes, and I am the state's Chief Information Officer and the Commissioner of Minnesota IT Services. Thank you for this opportunity to testify today on Senate File 4002, which contains the governor and lieutenant governor's budget recommendations for Minnesota IT services. In recognition of the increasing and constantly evolving security threat posed to our state's IT systems and services, the governor's budget recommendations now include an updated request to help us procure and deploy advanced cybersecurity tools. The sophisticated tools will build upon layers of defense to allow us to protect our technology, ensure and protect the identity of users of our systems, and quickly detect and respond to threats, enabling us to further defend state systems and safeguard state services for the Minnesotans that depend on them. This additional funding request was added because today we are operating with additional urgency in our IT environment, one where we must address new risks and vulnerabilities in light of global threat actors. The impact of Minnesota's response to our current environment, however, must be broader than a single tool or project. Minnesota IT services change items this session reflect a comprehensive approach to the risks and opportunities currently before us, an accelerated move to the cloud, a strategic approach to modernizing applications, a commitment to digital accessibility, and the ability to leverage federal cybersecurity grant funding to address both state and local needs. These investments are all essential in helping us meet the unique opportunity and responsibility we have before us today. We are at a critical juncture. We can set our state firmly on a path to provide more efficient, effective, approachable, and secure state services for all Minnesotans. Or we can set ourselves up for decades of trying to play catch up with limited resources. The state's the ERP request from MMP is an example of the futility of living in a technology deficit to the detriment of the Minnesotans we serve. These funding requests can help us fundamentally shift the way technology supports the mission of state government. IT can serve as a secure digital connector and a true catalyst for positive, efficient, and effective change to meet the needs and expectations of all Minnesotans now and into the future. The state has a significant budget surplus, and while we recognize that Minute's budget requests this session are larger than change items we have previously brought forth to this committee, we know that these relatively moderate investments will result in significant returns and value to the people of Minnesota, while enabling the state to respond appropriately to cyber threats that are ever evolving and that have never been more evident and urgent than they are today. It is my responsibility to relentlessly advocate for the ways that technology can improve outcomes for the people of Minnesota, and we may not experience another moment of action quite like this one. The governor's budget recommendations recognize both the increased cyber threat level we face today and the opportunity that stands before us to leverage cloud technology to modernize our operations and services. Minnesotans are demanding government services are secure, easy to access, and that promote the efficient delivery of services and use of taxpayer dollars. Through targeted investments in an accelerated move to the cloud, application modernization, and the implementation of advanced cyber tools, Minnesota can take a significant leap forward in securing and modernizing our technology environments and transforming the way Minnesotans interact with their government. We look forward to partnering with you to enable this transformation and live up to our responsibility as state leaders to protect Minnesotans, their data, and the services they rely upon during a period of increasing geopolitical uncertainty and cyber threats. Thank you for your time, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Any questions for Commissioner Tomes? See none. Thank you for your testimony. Next up, we have Commissioner Roberts Davis from the Department of Admin. Commissioner, please state your name for the audio record and continue with your testimony.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Chair Kiffmeyer, members. For the record, I am Alice Roberts Davis, Commissioner for the Minnesota Department of Administration. Thank you for the opportunity to be here this morning. Admin has previously presented our budget request to this committee, so I will just highlight those items. As you know, admin has a wide range of responsibilities that ultimately touch every aspect of state government. Admin's supplemental budget requests reflect our efforts to improve the services of our agency partners, and we are seeking funds to cover the state match for the Procurement Technical Assistance Center, to improve human resources and financial services at admin, and to address the revenue loss for the Fleet Fund. Admin also requests funds to support the Office of Collaboration and Dispute Resolution, to improve grants administration, to implement and update the Private Cemeteries Act, and to establish the Office of Enterprise Translations. Additionally, we recommend eliminating the $200 fee to request an open meeting law advisory opinion to bring it in line with the Data Practices Act advisory opinions, which are free. And on behalf of the Association of Minnesota Public Educational Radio Stations, or AMPERS, the governor recommends funds for AMPERS community radio news services. In the governor's revised supplemental budget that was released after my previous testimony, the governor recommends funds to cover enterprise COVID-19 workers' compensation claims costs. First, to cover costs related to the passage of Chapter 32 this session, which extended the presumption for certain occupations, the governor recommends $953,000 in FY22 and $1.594 million in FY '23. This request would cover state agency COVID-19 workers' compensation claims costs for the period of February 22, 2022 through January 14, 2023. Occupations covered include licensed peace officers, firefighters, paramedics or emergency medical technicians, nurses or healthcare providers and workers, assistive employees in healthcare settings, and corrections officers. Admin will pay claims directly for agencies when they meet the requirements of the law, and this simplifies claims processing and limits the numbers of transactions required. State agencies with employees covered under the COVID-19 presumptions include corrections, human services, natural resources, public safety, and the Minnesota's veterans' homes. Additionally, the governor recommends $1 million in FY '23 to cover COVID-19 workers' compensations claims for the period prior to March 4th, 2021, which currently can't be paid with federal dollars. In a few cases, admin is still receiving bills for claims that date back to the period before March of 2021. These cases usually involve those with serious long-haul cases of COVID-19. That concludes my testimony, and I'll stand for any questions that you have.
Thank you, Commissioner. Any questions for Commissioner Roberts Davis? See none. I thank you for your testimony. We'll move on to Ms. Rattan from MMB. Hopefully I got that right. Oh, correct me. Please state your name for the record. I'll learn from that and continue with your testimony. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My name is Deputy Commissioner Britta Rattan with MMB. I appreciate the opportunity to present our budget request today. I want to start by talking about our request for sustainable funding for our state ERP system. That's our enterprise resource planning systems. These are the systems that handle all of our transactions for accounting, data for financial reporting, payroll, HR, and training statewide. So these are enterprise-wide systems. We are reaching a tipping point with our funding for these systems. We have a amount that's capped in law at $10 million a year that we can bill out to other agencies to fund those systems. And then we use other general fund resources and one-time resources to meet the full needs of the system. But those dollars are not sufficient to maintain the systems and to upgrade the systems to the level that's needed. So our request is really in two parts. We're asking for some one-time general fund resources in 23 through 24 and 25 to stabilize the systems. 6.3 million in 23 and 17.9 million in 24 and 25. Part of this request is to upgrade our data warehouse system, which hasn't had an upgrade since 2011. But the second part of our request is really what gets us to this sustainable funding model. And that's lifting the $10 million cap that's currently in statute and allowing MMB to bill agencies for the costs to maintain these systems going forward. I want to highlight that we are at this kind of tipping point where we've been using balance forward in our billing account over the last few years in order to meet the needs of the system. And that funding is exhausted at this point. So without additional resources, we'd actually have to reduce our spend from current levels on our systems maintenance. I also want to highlight that the OLA in a report in 2018 highlighted the need for sustainable funding for these systems going forward. In terms of our other requests, we have a request to increase our staffing at MMB to evaluate the impact of state investments. This is part of our results team at MMB, and we're requesting additional FTEs to create additional capacity to do these rigorous evaluations of state investments to make sure we understand the outcomes we're getting from those state investments. We're requesting $300,000 from the general fund in 23, and then $450,000 a year going forward to increase the number of FTEs on that team. I want to highlight that this has been really a bipartisan effort over the years to increase the capacity to do this sort of evaluation of state investments. An additional request we have is for additional capital budget outreach and assistance. We are requesting funding for 2 additional FTEs, both in our debt management division and in our budget division. The purpose of this would be to increase awareness around the capital budget process. So those that have typically not had access to the capital budget process can understand the requirements and can get the technical assistance from our debt management team to understand what's required. Additionally, we're requesting funding for the cross-agency coordination of the Children's Cabinet. The Children's Cabinet is housed within MMB, and currently we bill agencies to support the staffing for the Children's Cabinet. We are requesting funding to provide ongoing general fund support of these efforts instead of the agency billing. This is in alignment with the funding practices in other states for this sort of work. And then not so much on the MMB operating side, but MMB is carrying this change item. There's also a request for the governor's COVID-19 emergency response fund. If you recall, we set up a fund of this nature at the end of last session to provide funding for emergency response to COVID. If you recall, at the end of last session, we were hoping there wouldn't be much need for those resources. I think at that point in time, we thought the pandemic was kind of on the downswing. And then, of course, we saw with the Delta variant and then with the Omicron variant, a lot of needs in the community, particularly in our healthcare sector for support over the last year. And so those dollars were able to be deployed quickly to meet the needs in the community as the crisis increased. And then I just want to mention one other proposal as part of the governor's revised supplemental budget. There is a proposal to increase the COLAs for retirees in the pension systems just on a one-time, one-year basis. And you'll see that on the spreadsheet. That language is not yet in the bill draft that you have. But essentially what this is doing is using general fund resources to increase the COLA in calendar year 23 to 2.5% for all retirees. Again, that's general fund resources. So it's not pulling resources from the retirement funds. And again, it's on a one-time basis. So then the COLAs would revert back to what is set in law after that one-year period. And with that, Mr. Chair, I'm happy to take questions.
Thank you, Ms. Riton. Is that right?
Rayton.
Rayton.
Like a ray of sunshine.
Well, thank you. Any questions for Ms. Riton? Seeing none, thank you for your testimony. And we will go to Ms. Freeman from the Office of the Secretary of State. Are you online?
I am. Thank you, Mr.
Thank
Chair.
you. Please state your name for the audio record and continue with your testimony.
Yes, thank you, Chair and members. My name is Nicole Freeman. I am the Director of Government Relations for the Office of Secretary of State. Thanks for having me here with you this morning. A few weeks ago, Secretary Simon presented our 2 other supplemental budget items, and so I'm not going to touch on those today. Happy to answer any questions related to them, though. I will just highlight the one piece that's new. And actually, it's not a direct appropriation to our office, but rather it is a $200,000 match that will be placed into the AHAVA account to meet the state match for federal HAVA funds that have just been appropriated in the Consolidated Appropriations Act of 2022, just signed by the president last week. So we know that we will be allocated at least $1 million into the HAVA account from the federal government. And any further match could be appropriated in the next biennium. So we're just kind of wanting to get a jump start on that and look forward to being allocated the full HAVA dollars to use as well. And that's all I have. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you. Any questions for Ms. Freeman? Seeing none, thank you for your testimony. And Senator Kiffmeyer, any closing comments, or you want to just renew your motion to?
No, Mr. Chair, the purpose here is just to get the bill as drafted by the governor to this committee. And with that, I would move that Senate File 4002 be laid over for possible inclusion.
With that, Senator Kiffmeyer moves that Senate File 4002 be laid over for possible inclusion.
Okay, next item on the agenda, we're going to take Senator Pratt, Senate File 3531. This has been laid on the table. We're going to bring it up. And after that, we will do Senator Nelson. Okay, Senator Pratt, I think we need a motion. Ms. James, do we bring it off the table? No motion required. Okay, it's on the table, which means we're able to just take action on it. So Senator Pratt, in regards to your bill, I think the big thing is we laid it over for some work on a amendment.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And yes, Ms. James had identified some concerns with the rulemaking language that was in the original bill. We've worked with Senate Counsel, yourself and Senator Newman to craft a new rulemaking section with that. So Madam Chair, I would move the A7 amendment and maybe ask Ms. James to walk through the explanation.
Okay, thank you, Senator Pratt. Ms. James.
Madam Chair and members, the original bill granted no rulemaking authority to the commissioner, although some was probably required because there was a fair amount of discretion on a number of items that would have general applicability and future effect, and so might have been interpreted to be rules. So the amendment provides rulemaking authority and it is constrained in several ways. The subject matter of the rules is listed on lines 1.9 through 1.16. And also 1.17 through 1.20. The lines on lines 1.21 through 1.24 of the amendment is the time limit for using the rulemaking authority, and also precludes using this authority to amend the rules later. And then beginning at lines 1.26 to the end of the amendment is a special provision that requires the commissioner to report to the legislature on any additional rules that might be required to implement the bill that we haven't given authority for in subdivision 17.
Thank you, Ms. James. So with that, members, we'll go ahead and I think we've had this explanation. See no further discussion. We're going to go ahead. I'll move. Well, Senator Pratt, you can move your amendment.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move the A7 amendment.
A7 amendment being moved to Senate File 3531. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion prevails. The amendment is adopted. Senator Pratt, to your bill as amended.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Well, we had a very robust discussion last week on this bill, and so I won't dive into it too much. I would just ask the committee, allow me to move Senate File 3531 to pass as amended and be referred to the Committee on Civil Law.
On that motion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion prevails. Senator Pratt,
Thank you,
we
members.
got you out now. Off you go. Thank you so much. Once we're done with committee anyway. Okay, Senator Nelson. Senate File 3363. And Senator Nelson, we have a limited amount of time. So you
Thank
had
you.
requested to be at the end of the agenda, and then you are here. I understand you have testifiers, so we want to, out of respect for them, be able to do that. And you also have some letters of testimony. So with that, I'll move Senate File 3363, and Senator Nelson, after your introduction, please proceed. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair, and thank you for your flexibility, especially at this time of year. Madam Chair and members, Senate File 3363.
For the honor record, just be sure and state your name and.
Yes,
Okay.
but Madam Chair, before, I do want to make sure that you have the A2 amendment in your packets. I would offer the A2 amendment as a author's, or I won't, maybe
No.
someone else can offer it as a.
Just a moment,
amendment.
just a moment. Give us time, Senator Nelson. Since we changed the order around, we just have to get on it. So, Ms. James, is this the A2 amendment one? Okay. I'll move the A2 amendment to Senate File 3363. And Senator Nelson, to your amendment, if you just explain it, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The amendment is just the anticipated appropriation, which may be less than this, but we did want to make sure the committee had this information. It could be added in finance if you so choose, but I wanted to make sure this committee had this information.
Yeah, Senator Nelson, we've already taken the hair technician language as part of the cosmetology bill that I chief author. So we do have some of this already there, but what we haven't had is some of the testimony that
Oh,
we
thank
see
you.
that you have with this, but it's going to be laid over. So for possible inclusion, but if you want to just present your bill and then also talk about your, bring your testifiers forward.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I knew this was not a new topic to this committee. I also want to thank Vice Chair Senator Howe for being a co-sponsor. So just very simply, this bill simply would allow Minnesotans who are interested in being cosmetologists who only cut hair, that's it, only cut hair, to have a new licensure that addresses hair technician only. That would prevent them from the requirement of taking courses, continuing education in things like nails, estheticians, things that they do not want to do. I would mention, members, that this hair only license is important to Minnesotans. I'll have my testifiers address why that is, but I do want you to know that there are other states as well who do have just this hair technician licensure. And it's just not fair that Minnesotans be left behind, especially Minnesotans who want to get started, and yet we have these additional barriers in place. So, Madam Chair, if I could turn it over to my testifiers now, we would do that. Mr. Felipe Eliustis, if you are here.
Well, Senator Nelson, go ahead and bring your testifiers forward. I don't have them listed here, so I don't know their names or who they are.
Thank you. Thank you.
So Senator Nelson, if you just go ahead and,
Yes.
who is here to testify? Are they online or in person?
Madam Chair, we have one person here in person who will translate for the online. We have 3 interested Minnesotans who
Okay.
are hair technicians that would like to be hair technicians, and they are online, Madam Chair.
Okay, proceed. And if whoever is going to start, please state your name. And then also, we would like to have the interpreter state the name, their name is also. And so would the interpreter come up to the testimony table? Need you to come to the testimony table so that so we will hear.
Madam Chair, yes, my misunderstanding, the interpreter's online as well, so we're ready to go online.
Okay, so they're both going to be online?
Correct.
Okay, so one at a time, please state your name and title or organization, or if you're speaking for yourself, please feel free to do so. But do that first, one at a time. And then after that, go ahead and start your testimony, and then the interpreter, the usual kind of process, okay? So each of you state your name. Just to let you know, members, their testimony is also included in the member packets in writing if you want to follow along as well. Please proceed. Go ahead. You can start.
Ok, Claudia. Mi nombre es Claudia Jiménez, soy manager de cosmetología por 30 años. Mandé mi testimonio y espero lo puedan considerar. Gracias.
Mi nombre es Jenny Clate, soy estilista y manager por 28 años y también les envié mi testimonio. Muchas gracias.
Hola, mi nombre es Yolanda Gómez, estilista por 30 años. También les mandé mi testimonio y espero pues nos puedan apoyar. Muchas gracias.
Welcome to the committee.
And if we could have our translator, Madam Chair.
Sure. Just go ahead and speak and use your time. You have about 2-3 minutes total. Reminding you, we do have your testimony in writing. But let's please go ahead and just roll right on through. We're ready for you.
Okay, I am Katia Cepeda. I am the translator, and I am Claudia Jimenez. I have been a hairstylist for 30 years. I am Jenny Clat, and I've been a hairstylist for 28 years. And I am Yolanda Gomez, and I've been a hairstylist for 30 years. And I want to thank you for the work that you're doing to improve the laws. And we have submitted a written testimony, and we hope you will read it and take it into consideration. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
So Senator Nelson, are they going to do more?
No, we just wanted to make sure that these women who have been in the industry for so long are able to get the type of licensure that other states are doing as well. And I really want to applaud them for coming forward. And I want to make sure the committee got to see them.
Well, absolutely. And Senator Nelson, as I've read these letters, such as a hairstylist for 30 years and the issue of getting the full cosmetology license, because that huge requirement hinders people who want to do less than the full. So in reading this, the number of years, 30 years, 17 years, variety of others, moms, families. I don't think members realize sometimes just the cost of cosmetology school, $15,000 to $25,000. And this is for the full cosmetology license. And it isn't just them as well, Senator Nelson. It's so many others that we've heard from as well. And also the OLA report as well that we as legislators chose as a topic. So I think it is very timely that we make these changes and focus on this. But Senator Nelson, obviously I'm supporting your bill as well, but go ahead.
Madam Chair, thank you so much for your time. And you have said all the things that need to be said. I would just add, members, that this is a priority of the Minnesota Council on Latino Affairs. I am glad to serve on that council. And I really applaud them for going out and speaking to the community and coming back with things that community particularly knows will be helpful in economic development, jobs, and removing regulatory barriers, something that this committee tries to do on a regular basis. I think I have one more testifier. Felipe, with the Minnesota Council on Latino Affairs. Is Felipe in the room? I know he had to visit with.
Please come forward
yes,
if
thank
you're
you.
going to be testifying. Glad to have you here today. Is there anybody else at all? Glad to have you here. And again, before you give your testimony, just state your name and title, organization you might be representing, and then proceed to testify. Are we having an interpreter situation again?
No, sorry, Madam Chair. We're gonna have 2 quick testimonies.
That's okay. Just a moment. That's great. We just wanted to clarify to be sure, since the 2 of you came up together. So the 2 of you will each testify, is that right?
Yep.
Okay, one at a time. Just state your name
I'll
if you're
start.
representing any organization, then proceed with your testimony.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My name is Felipe Yescas. I'm the Senior Legislative Director for the Minnesota Council on Latino Affairs. and I am here in support of Senate File 3363. It's a big priority for us. We had a group of cosmetologists that came to the council describing their negative experiences with the Board of Cosmetology, their challenges in getting licensed, because a lot of them went to school just to do hair outside of the US. That's their interest, that's their passion. And in Minnesota, unfortunately, they can't. And the ones that have been able to get a license, they've just had to pay more money to go to school and learn things that they're not going to really benefit off of because they're not going to be offering those services. So we just ask you to please consider this bill, include or pass this bill, and help us get a new hair technician license that will help a lot of families generate jobs, because right now those salons in the Latino community are faced with the challenge of not being able to fold their chairs with licensed technicians because, again, a lot of them just want to do hair. So it's a challenge. Businesses are closing, and this is something that will create jobs in Minnesota. Thank you.
Thank you very much for being here today. Appreciate your testimony and your work.
Good morning, Madam Chair and members of the committee. My name is Katie Frenchu. I am a licensed cosmetologist, and I have been practicing for the last 13 years. I am here testifying in support of SF 3363, which will modernize the cosmetology licensing apparatus. I attended the Aveda Institute Minneapolis back in 2008 to learn everything I could about the beauty industry under the pretense I was getting more bang for my buck. So I ended up paying a ridiculously high amount of money for cosmetology school. I spent long hours studying for my tests and received my license in 2009. However, once I was out in the real world, I had a reality check. Salons that I was interested in made me choose a specialty, which then made the cosmetology license obsolete, since I could only make money by providing one service. I really wish this bill would have been introduced before I went to cosmetology school, that we were having these conversations back then. I would have saved lots of money and time. I am here in full support of separating the licenses for the services so that new applicants that want to do hair can focus on hair. That others like me who are passionate about aesthetic services and nails can do it as well. Thank you very much for allowing me to be here today and share my support with you. I urge the committee to also support this bill. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Well said. And to let you know, yesterday I chief author cosmetology board reform bill. And we're doing several things in that bill, plus a work group that is going to take a look at even more things to reform this whole area. And one of them is extending the license from 3 years to 4 years when you get that far, because that'll reduce your costs once you are, and to do that. So you might want to take a look at that bill for more ways in which we are working to do separate types of licenses, but also on an ongoing basis to keep an eye on that work group. And you might be interested in being part of that and to at least keep an eye on it and speak your voice in regards to both that bill, which was laid over for possible inclusion. It is my intention to have a lot of those things. And so for your interest, if you want to do that, that's Senate File 4065. And so Senate File 4065 would be something I think you might be interested in, because it not only includes a hair technician, but also some other things that I think you will find beneficial. But I really appreciate Senator Nelson bringing this bill separately forward today, because we could hear about it from other testifiers, whereas that other one was a very large bill with many things. And I so appreciate being able to hear from all of you on an individual basis. So thank you, Senator Nelson. Are there any questions or comments from the committee? And just to remind ourselves, we're going to also have to actually vote on the A2 amendment, Senator Nelson, before we go to you for final comments.
Thank you. Just those final comments. Thank you for your time, Madam Chair, the good work that you've done on this. And I would just mention one thing. A part of that fiscal note that we talked about that you may see, I want you to know that part of that, and I know this is near and dear to this committee's heart, is rulemaking, which we do not necessarily think needs to happen, because obviously this is just separating an existing license and existing curriculum to better fit Minnesotans who know what particular area they want to go into. And thank you for this testimony. I was totally unaware that some salons only allowed you to practice one of those areas, and yet you have to get this very broad license. So, Madam Chair, my suggestion is look carefully at that rulemaking and that fiscal note. I know you will. I'm not so sure that all of that's necessary. So thank you, Madam Chair and committee.
Thank you, Senator Nelson. I appreciate that very much. And we will be doing that. I want to encourage you, since you have an interest in this, to follow the state government bill, and all the rest of you as well. Eventually, whatever that number is and so on, to stay engaged and stay involved and keep an eye on that, because we are actively working and we've gotten the attention of the Board of Cosmetology, and we're grateful now that as we're working more on that, we're really making some real progress on this. So hopefully you stay engaged. With that, I will move on the A2 amendment to Senate File 3363. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion prevails. And with that, we will lay Senate File 3363 over for possible inclusion. Thank you very much, Senator Nelson. Thank you to all of your testifiers. Okay. It's very interesting. Really appreciate that. Let's see. So I just want to make sure, since we've changed things around a little bit, we're going to go next to Senator Howe, Senate File 3157. Senator Howe, when you're ready, you can go ahead and
Thank
present your
you,
bill.
Madam Chair. And Senate File 3157 is a bill that comes as a result of the B3 requirements and what that had done. It almost prevented the library in Kimball from being built after they got some state funding, for the simple fact that they were required to install 2% of their energy needs, and it had to be built on site by either wind or solar. So they had no idea when they got the state funding that B3 guidelines ever even existed, and neither did I. But what I found out is when you get state bonding money, you need to provide those B3 guidelines apply, and you have to have 2% of your energy needs generated on site by either wind or solar. So that requirement was very onerous for a very small building. But what happened was, so what this bill does is, this bill doesn't eliminate the need to get 2% of your energy cost from renewable means, but it eliminates the cost of producing it on site. So you can buy it from your utility provider who gets it from a big solar garden or a big wind farm. So it's still renewable energy. It just allows them to purchase that from their utility company and not generate it on site, which many times is unreal. It's just unaffordable. So that's the bill. And I'll stand for any questions, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much, Senator Howe. Any questions from the members? Seeing none, Senator Howe, your bill will be laid. You want to make final comments? Oh, I'm sorry, didn't see you. Senator Carlson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I was just wondering, it's limited to wind and sun. Was there ever any consideration of thermal energy part of that?
Senator Howe.
Well, thank you, Senator Clausen. I will tell you that I would like to modify a lot of things in this bill, but I thought that this was a step that we might be able to get done. I sometimes wonder why we have the B3 guidelines when we have the Minnesota Energy Code that is very effective on which we apply to all buildings. And I'm wondering why we have something special for bonding money, but that would be another piece that we should probably look at.
Thank you, Senator Clausen. Good point. I would say also, Senator Howe, that when they have to put these fixtures on their buildings, so what you're talking about is that greatly increases the cost of that building as well. Is that true?
That's exactly right, Madam Chair. And so with many of these are on small sites, they can't put it off the building, and many times they don't have the design that will allow them to adequately put it on a roof. And when you're talking wind, that is there's many times that's a large structure also. So they all of that costs an extreme amount of money, and it's not the most economical way, because those large solar gardens and large wind farms are much more economical and produce are much more energy efficient than putting it on a small building.
Well, thank you, Senator Howe. I think someday, though, we are going to have a huge recovery need, unrecyclable windmill blades, batteries, all kinds of things that are not included often in the cost of some of these sources of energy, unlike we have requirements of reclamation in other
Madam
areas.
Chair, that's a great discussion for another day.
Couldn't resist, Senator Howe. All right, thank you very much. And with that, Senate File 3157 is laid over for possible inclusion. Okay, members. We will then move on to Senator Carlson. You have about 15 minutes, Senator Carlson, for your two bills, and then we won't have to come back this evening. So we have Senate File 3733 and Senate File 3729. And again, this is the Department of Administration. So members, we do have some testifiers. But other than that, I think some of these things are not unfamiliar to us, so we can probably go fairly quick. And yes, if testifiers want to come on up and get ready, that's good as well. Senator Carlson.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Be sure and say your name and title. So easy to forget it, but for the audio record, they cannot always see.
Audio is on, correct?
Yes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My name is Senator Jim Carlson, and I'm a member of the committee. Thank you, Madam Chair, for hearing this bill. This is an agency bill, and to make sure that we get it, we talk about the correct parts of the bill. I would like to make sure that we do the A1 amendment.
You can move your A1 amendment as an author's amendment, Senator Carlson.
Thank you. I moved the A1 amendment to Senate File 3733, the
And
small
members,
business
this is a
program.
delete all amendment. On that motion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion prevails and is adopted. Senator Carlson, to your bill as amended.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I want to thank Council Stephanie Jones for putting together the A1 amendment in such short order. 3733 is an administration's bill for small business program enhancements and state contracting clarifications. It's an effort to increase state contracts with targeted groups, economically disadvantaged and veteran-owned small businesses. In your packet, you have a handout that has some of the coverage of economically disadvantaged groups around the state, and also some the percentage of work that's being applied to these groups. I have the Commissioner of MMB here, the Ms. Alice Roberts Davis, and she can go through the bill for you.
Thank you, Senator Carlson.
Commissioner, welcome again.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Members, again, for the record, I'm Alice Roberts Davis, Commissioner of Admin, and I'd like to thank Senator Carlson for authoring Senate File 3733, which is Admin's Small Business Program Enhancements and State Contracting Clarifications Bill. This bill will enhance our small business program, help grow our pool of vendors that do business with the state, and clarify our procurement language. I will be using the acronym TG, ED, and VO, which stands for a business that has been certified as a part of our targeted group program and is located in one of the 44 economically disadvantaged counties in Minnesota, or is a veteran-owned business. So first, I want to make our subcontractor goals consistent for all of our prime contractors. Currently, the law authorizes the state to require a prime contractor to subcontract a portion of the contract to a TG EDVO small business. However, those requirements do not apply to prime contractors who are themselves certified as a TG EDVO small business. So this bill would make the requirement the same for all prime contractors, regardless of their certification status. This would even the playing field for all prime contractors. Admin is also proposing a clarification to the prohibition on the best and final offer negotiation technique. This change will make it clear that using best and final offer for building construction contracts is prohibited when using a low bid process, but it is not prohibited under the best value process. The ability to negotiate proposals is an important component of any best value procurement process. This change in statute makes it clear that the prohibition on using a best and final offer applies only to the low bid process and not on the best value process. Next, we'd like to expand our small business program. The current program streamlines the procurement process for purchases under $25,000 when made from a TGEDVO vendor. This has been a very successful tool for us to increase contracting opportunities with certified small businesses. Admin is proposing to increase the $25,000 contracting threshold from $25,000 to $100,000. This would expand the program, give more flexibility to agencies, and help to spread the state's procurement dollars to more businesses. In addition to expanding our small business program, we're proposing to increase the percentage of preference that a certified TGEDVO small business receives in a competitive business process from 6% to 12%. Admin conducted an internal analysis on contracts and found that an increase to 12% would help us continue to vary the state's spending on contracting. And these programs really do over-index with our veteran-owned businesses and our businesses that are located in economically disadvantaged counties throughout the state. Our last item is focused on TGEDVO businesses and our proposal to streamline the TGEDVO certification process. We would do this by recognizing certifications that are offered by nationally recognized certification bodies. There are several of them across the country, and we would adopt our same standards, but we would use their certification process so that we could streamline our ability to certify more businesses and create a larger pool for businesses within the TGEDVO. We would maintain our strong controls and ensure there is no fraud within the program, but recognize the efforts of those businesses to achieve national certifications as part of the state certification process. Finally, we have a report cleanup. Admin was required to report to the legislature in 2013 and 2014 on state agencies that had utilized outside vendors for possible reorganizations and to find efficiencies to improve state services, which we completed. The reports were only for the required 2013 and 2014 period and did not recur annually. So we're looking to delete this obsolete language. Thank you for your time today and hearing these proposals. I'm got my colleague Betsy Hayes, our state procurement officer, on the phone if there are any additional questions.
Okay, so we have Holly's Winston, and who is online, I understand. Ms. Winston, please go ahead and present your testimony after you, Mr. Holly. Mr. Winston, after you state your name and title. Sorry, couldn't tell from Holly's, so.
No, I have two last names. Thank you, Madam Chair and committee for giving me the opportunity to speak. So my name is Hollis Winston. I actually own a business called Guaranteed America, but I'm also here in my capacity with the Catalyst Coalition. Catalyst Coalition works to help Black immigrant people of color businesses grow into healthier or larger business. But we also operate a Minnesota Inclusive Growth Fund, which is a $17 million fund that seeks to assist veteran, women, and minority-owned businesses. And I think from my angle, I'm speaking particularly to the more targeted contracts and increasing that no bid threshold. But I will say that minority-owned businesses often face unique challenges in the public procurement process due to systemic barriers embedded in the process. These barriers affect minority-owned businesses at all stages of the process, from solicitation and bidding to completion, and put these businesses at a disadvantage compared to their counterparts. Even after accounting for fewer minority-owned businesses, the share of government contracts won by other firms has remained disproportionate to their share of the industry. Much of this has to do with minority-owned businesses, in some cases veteran-owned businesses don't have the same network or connections to understand how these bids work. I'll close this out and say, from my own personal experience, so I was able to get a contract through the state of Minnesota, and that contract allowed me, and it was a small contract, but it allowed me to leverage that experience and those references into a business that is my sole means of employment, and in which I have employed from anywhere at any time from 2 to 3 people, including myself. So I think it's extremely important helping people to get this on their resume, giving them this opportunity so they understand how this works, but then it also allows them to use it to grow greater business opportunities that employ other people. And the last thing is, I think as the state becomes more diverse in certain ways, I think it's important to grow out a network of businesses that the state can depend on to get work done. I think if you look at even a location like Wilmer and how the Latino population has grown many of their businesses there, and in some areas they're revitalizing, I think it's important that as a state level, we diversify out so that that network is there for the future, so that we can, help all of these cities experience that level of growing prosperity. So thank you again, Madam Chair and committee, for allowing me to speak. I appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you very much, Mr. Winston. I appreciate your taking the time today. Members, questions? Senator Karan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And Senator Carlson, maybe Commissioner, you can help me understand the Section 5 and the best and final, the statement. This prohibits the utilization of the best and final for contracts that are awarded on a competitive bid process. Isn't that the nature of a competitive bid, is to also deploy a best and final?
Senator Carlson.
Madam Chair, could we hear that question again, please?
So on Section
Senator
5,
Karan.
the best and final offer says the best and final offer solicitation process may not be used for building and construction contracts awarded based on competitive bids. I mean, a best and final is a integrated component of a competitive bid process. So help me describe what that change is needed for.
Senator Carlson.
Madam Chair, I will have to defer to the Commissioner to
Commissioner.
answer the question.
Madam Chair, Senator Coran, there are times when we use the competitive bid process, we use low bid, which is one option that we use. And obviously when we have a low bid scenario, the low bid wins, there's no further negotiation. There are times when we use the competitive bid process or best value process where price is only a component of what we are looking for. We're looking for a number of different things. When we go into that type of scenario, we want to be able to have some flexibility to ask for a best and final offer. And that's what we're looking to change. when price is just a component. Sometimes it's innovation, sometimes it's a number of different things that we're looking for. And we want to be able to have the flexibility to ask for a best and final offer in that scenario. So that's what this change will offer.
Madam Chair, follow.
Yes, Senator Coran.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And so with it doesn't clarify that, or it doesn't appear to offer that explanation as far as flexibility. You described a competitive bid that could be fixed price or a low bid and or one which you may choose to engage. The statute doesn't appear that it differentiates between the two. So, Madam, Chair, I know we're pressed for time, and Commissioner knows where I stand on procurement and the lack of an effective procurement process that we have in place today. And without the process of an invitation to negotiate, neither of those processes are as effective for our citizens. So I'll continue to work with you on that later. So thank you, Madam Chair.
Yep, thank you, Senator Coran, and I appreciate that. Members, we have another bill. And so we're going to go ahead and lay this bill over. And just to remind you, I have questions also, but this, I feel it's not the place or time right now to address some of those questions and concerns that I have. So we're going to lay this bill over and we'll continue to work on it. This Senate File 3733 as amended is laid over. Senator Carlson, to your next bill, Senate File 3729.
Yes. Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm moving Senate File 3729, and that's just a very simple cleanup of statute. And Commissioner, I need to apologize to the Commissioner for moving her to a different department. That Commissioner Alice Roberts Davis is from the Department of Admin.
Great, Commissioner. I also understand Sherry Hansen will also be testifying. Commissioner? That's the note we have here, or is that just in case needed?
Madam Chair, I'm not sure who Sherry is.
Okay. Oh, okay. All right. There you are. All right. Commissioner, why don't you go ahead and then we'll go to Ms. Hansen.
Great.
Commissioner.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Again, for the record, Alice Roberts Davis, Commissioner for the Department of Administration. Again, thank you to Senator Carlson for authoring SF 3729. And thank you, Senator Kiffmeyer, for hearing this bill, which is Admin's Policy and Technical Change Bill. This bill includes proposals that you may recognize from past sessions and includes provisions for a number of our divisions. First, we are addressing the final two cleanup items from the move of the State Historic Preservation Office to admin from the Minnesota Historical Society in 2018. There were a couple of mistakes that were made or missed in the language updates, and this corrects those mistakes. Next, admin provides administrative support to the State Designer Selection Board, or the SDSB. This is the board that selects the primary designer on building construction or remodeling projects for state agencies, the University of Minnesota, and Minnesota State Colleges and Universities. They also do this for other local building or remodeling projects that are state funded. We have a couple of proposals that will streamline their work. The American Institute of Architects in Minnesota requested that we increase the threshold for the SDSB review for $200,000 in design fees or $2 million in construction costs to $400,000 in design fees and $4 million in construction costs, and set a regular schedule for adjustment reviews for those thresholds. The threshold has not been updated since the establishment of the SDSB in 1996. And again, this recommendation is coming from the AIA. Projects under the threshold still would have to follow the state's regular procurement processes. They would just not be reviewed by the SDSB. We know that each project that goes through the SDSB obviously is taking time, and for those low dollar thresholds that exist today, almost every project has to be reviewed by them, and it is not the best use of their time. We are also proposing to exempt consultants from state construction delays, and there are situations that arise when a contractor needs input from a design consultant or other professional vendor prior to proceeding with supplemental work. If it's not within the current scope of the consultant's contract, construction work has to be stopped until all of the paperwork catches up. Again, this is an inefficiency and it takes time and sometimes slows down the construction project. And so we're asking for an exemption there. Additionally, we'd like to add design and construction projects to the contracts that are eligible to waive the procurement process during emergencies. We've asked for this in the past, and this change aligns with the national and state conversations around national preparedness. Finally, we're looking to correct our statutes to reflect the move of the Office of Collaboration and Dispute Resolution to the Department of Administration in 2019. This concludes my testimony, and I have my colleague Wayne Waslowski on the call if there are any questions.
Thank you, Commissioner. Ms. Hanson.
Thank you very much. Madam Chair, members of the committee, Commissioner. My name is Sherry Hansen, and I'm testifying today on behalf of the American Institute of Architects, Minnesota, to speak in favor of this bill, specifically the provisions that would adjust dollar thresholds and establish a regular threshold review process for the State Designer Selection Board program. This bill updates the dollar thresholds to reflect modern construction costs for public building projects. It was first proposed in a 2018 report crafted by AIA, ACEC, and the State Arts Board that examined the overall SDSB process. I think we can all agree that nothing costs the same today as it did in 1996. That means projects that were not originally meant to go through the SDSB process are now subject to it purely because the thresholds are not aligned with actual costs. Adding a regular update process will also help ensure that the threshold accurately reflects the prices and economic realities of design and construction, allowing the SDSB process to focus on the more complex projects it was intended to. The measurement proposed for use for the updates is the means quarterly construction costs index average, which averages costs from 5 major Minnesota communities. It is important to note, and the commissioner noted this, that projects that fall under the threshold will still go through the state's regular and rigorous procurement process, so there will be appropriate oversight. These projects are smaller and without significant design challenges. Keeping the threshold at an appropriate level will balance our dual goals of quality and efficiency. We value the work of the Designer Selection Board to help ensure that significant public projects select designers based on qualifications rather than price alone to ensure fairness and equity for designers around the entire state. We believe this change will help keep the SDSB focused on its mission and functioning well to produce the highest quality design work in Minnesota. Thank you, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much, Ms. Hanson. Any questions from members? Seeing none, Senator Carlson, final comments.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I believe that we've had some very good description of what's needed. They're primarily technical. And I will, I'm not sure if you have a preference as to what you're going to do with this bill, if this is going to be laid
They're
over.
all going to be laid over.
Okay.
For
Thank you.
possible.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
You can make that motion.
Do we need a motion to lay it over?
No, I can just lay it over. I just wanted to.
I'll move to lay it over. Thank you,
All right.
Madam Chair.
Thank you, Senator Carlson. Senate File 3729 is laid over. Well, members, we were able to complete what we needed to on our agenda right now, and Senator Bakk and our communication as well. We will place that bill. Senate File 4072 will be on Tuesday's agenda. So those of you interested in that, you will see that on Tuesday. All right, members, with that, we've, any other announcements? Okay. We'll see you next Tuesday, and remind you, next Tuesday is finals week, as we would call it. So remember to be on time for the committee, and we're going to have a lot of work to get done. So with that, we are adjourned.